You're listening to Dealbox Daily, the latest on everything digital assets, blockchain, fintech, and more. For entrepreneurs, we deliver best practices on all things private placements. For investors, we dive into the latest strategies for identifying strong alternative investments. Whether you're a crypto head or looking to start or scale a business, Dealbox Daily is a steady stream of hand-picked topics for the modern investor and entrepreneur. And by steady stream, we mean hand-delivered headlines every day. You're hungry, and we're ready. So get giddy for another episode of Dealbox Daily. You are listening to a podcast discussion with Todd Pitcher of Dealbox and the Impact Naturals team of Vassily Kotlov, Joe Fanelli, Jim Lowder, and Sara Kotlova. Impact Naturals Group Inc. is a San Diego-based life science company that operates two distinct business segments. One, a consumer product division focused on developing, manufacturing through our partnerships, marketing, and selling plant-based dietary supplements and hemp-based cannabidiol CBD products to a range of market sectors. And two, a specialized pharmaceutical segment focused on developing and commercializing CBD-based novel therapeutics utilizing CBD.
This is Todd Pitcher with Dealbox, and I'm joined by Vassily Kotlov, Jim Lowder, and Joe Fanelli of Natural Impact Group, a San Diego-based life sciences company, developing CBD products under the Natural Impact and Kylotech brands for the U.S. and global wellness and therapeutic markets.
Vassily, I have 20 plus years of experience in pharmaceutical and diagnostic and biotech industries. I spent a lot of time in immunology and oncology. I saw a lot of parallels in terms of the scientific rationale and mechanism of action of cannabinoids to the signaling pathway concept of immune system. And so that's what got me attracted. I truly believe in the potential. It's going to be an exciting and evolving journey. And we're here as a company to stay for, next many years to evolve the industry.
Jim, why don't you go next?
Sure. I'm an MD. I'm a hematologist, oncologist. Practiced medicine for a while, but I've had probably 30 plus years of experience in the pharmaceutical, diagnostic, and research industry, and have done a lot of drug development and found that cannabinoids represented a really unique opportunity to modulate, as Vassily was saying, both the immunologic activities of the body, but also the neurologic activities of the body. And this is a system which exists within our bodies with receptors and natural agonists, antagonists that are there, which basically don't do as many direct activities, but provide modulation of the other systems that cause nerves to fire and the immune system to perform its activities.
Joe?
All right. I've got 25 plus years of manufacturing and production and supply chain management. I transitioned to consumer product goods about 6 years ago, developing functional protein and energy bars. That led me to extensive experience in packaging and then working with a pet company that made CBD treats out of Colorado. And so I got extensively working with them. They were doing studies with the University of Colorado, and I started to see some pretty amazing things with CBD. After that, I consulted with 5 or 6 major brands and have launched close to 35 or 36 SKUs, unique SKUs I've developed into the market that are currently being sold in major retail outlets, et cetera. That led me to contact with Vassily. But prior to that, I became involved with Lexaria Biosciences and developed their operations in the United States. And I'm now their master general manager for the United States market to develop that and that technology. I met up with Vassily and Dr. Jim and Ramon in several projects working with them, and it all clicked. And so we've decided to focus the technology that we have to bring another level, or the level that CBD products should be at, and commercialize it.
And Todd, I would like to introduce Sarah as well. I realize, based on our introduction, that we sound very, very scientific. But as a company, we believe that there is a unique path for bringing products to market in the cannabinoid space that is somewhere in between the over-the-counter traditional approach and the pharmaceutical traditional approach. And Sarah brings a lot of experience in direct-to-consumer marketing. And I'll let Sarah introduce herself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sara Kotlova. I spent about 25 years in brand and marketing, mostly with WPP agencies, including J. Walter Thompson, and also working for the master brand at WPP, primarily on Unilever. My CPG experience goes across grocery, drugstore, into C-Mart even. Some of the larger brands I've worked on include the J&J portfolio, over into medical on that one, into black box with drugs like Remicade, also over into Massengale, KY, and a number of the consumer brands. I spent the last 3 or 4 years mostly working on Unilever across the US and Asia mostly, and Dove was one of our flagships there. I've also worked a lot on premium and luxury, including Rolex, and some automotive brands as well. Basically, one of my strengths is really around creating memorable and lasting brand impressions. Which then of course go on to we go on to think about the advertising and reach strategy for. So I like to think that my strength is making big brands more nimble and agile online and better able to adjust to the new digital environment, and to make small brands punch above their weight in terms of their their credibility, their resourcefulness, and their reach into audience.
Great. There was a reference to Ramon as well, and Ramon is the company's CFO, and he's not with us on this call today. So let's start with the science. And Jim started to touch on it, but to drill down a bit further, maybe Jim or Joe or Vassily, whoever wants to respond, just in terms of walking us through, just generally speaking, how CBD works in the human body. What are the most advantageous aspects of it? What's the promise of CBD in terms of our overall health and wellness?
The cannabinoid system exists in our bodies, and actually, unlike most of the other ones, which are designed to pass signals downstream, the endocannabinoid system works upstream, which is how it actually modulates things. That it sort of shuts down excessive stimulation of a variety of other systems in our body. And so I think Vassily talked about one, which is a great example, the whole cytokine release syndrome. Now, cytokines and cannabinoids as well are designed to work locally. They communicate from one cell to another. If there's excessive production of cytokines, for instance, which run the immune system, they spill out into your blood and cause all the symptoms that make us feel sick. Oftentimes the infections don't make us feel sick. It's our immune systems fighting it that makes us feel sick. So it's very important for the cannabinoid system, the endocannabinoid system, to turn on to help reduce these excessive stimulations. And whether it's of the immune system, which causes cytokine release, or neurologic circumstances, which can be a cause of pain, because overstimulation of nerves can cause chronic pain. And so there's opportunities to modulate those, and cannabinoids are what do it. We produce things like anandamide and 2-AG, which are sort of our natural cannabinoids to do this, but we can supplement those if necessary to change the way that we feel. Another I think interesting component, and again, Vassily brought up getting high. People, that's caused by THC, and THC is really one of the few cannabinoids that causes you to feel giddy. Most of the others do not have that side effect. But there's other features like runner's high, and people have talked about that, and people that exercise excessively. And this is one of the things that I think got Vassily and I interested in this, because we're both avid cyclists. And so we go out and stupidly exercise ourselves into oblivion. But what you get from that is you get the runner's high. And the runner's high, which people thought was mediated by the opioid system, is actually mediated by the endocannabinoid system. So that's another very interesting feature which people have experienced. Another thing is that the mechanism of action of acetaminophen, Tylenol, appears to be largely mediated by a metabolite of Tylenol, which interacts with the endocannabinoid system. So there's a lot of things that sort of suggest that using the cannabinoid system and supplementing with whether we call them drugs or whether we call them food additives or whatever, can really make sense. And this has not been explored. One of the reasons it's not been explored is because our government has decided that that marijuana is some kind of evil drug, and they basically shut down any research about it, or made it illegal. So it really has not been studied. So it's kind of a nascent area for people to study and learn how to use, and we believe that this is a really wonderful opportunity.
So based upon what we do know about the interaction of the endocannabinoid system and what we do know about CBD and so forth to this point, what, in your opinion, what are the most effective ways to ingest CBD into the body so that it maximizes those benefits?
Do you want me to talk to that?
Go for it, Jim.
Sure. Well, obviously the standard way was, because it's a plant, people used to smoke it. And smoking it obviously delivers the drug right to the lungs. The lungs go right into the blood, and you get fairly immediate approaches, and then obviously you can vape it. But I think the majority of people don't find inhaling things to be an optimal way of delivering drug. Plus, there's vast variability. You get about 30% of the drug can get in via that route. And so if you inhale deeply, or if you only inhale a little bit, you can really change the amount of the material that gets into your bloodstream. So, other ways are to try and absorb it through the mucous membranes. And so this is very much like, and tobacco and nicotine are really kind of the standard that we look at. So people chew tobacco or put snuff, against their cheek. And so you can absorb nicotine that way. You can absorb the cannabinoids that way as well. So many people have talked about using tinctures, which you put under your tongue or keep in your mouth. Unfortunately, most of that ends up being swallowed in the context of tinctures. And so then it becomes an oral approach. Oral approaches with the drug are more difficult, because if you just sort of take standard unprocessed materials, you only get 5% perhaps or less is absorbed. And there's several reasons for that. One is that the drug is very lipophilic. That means it likes fat. So it doesn't go through the way water-soluble things do. And what does get in typically will go into the portal vein, which goes right through the liver. And our bodies are designed to metabolize things that we eat, because many of them could be poisonous or toxic. So the liver metabolizes everything. And again, the cannabinoids are metabolized by the liver greatly. And so much of what you might take in that way is metabolized very quickly and never gets to your brain or your immune system or wherever you'd like it to get to. But there are ways to get the drug or the material into the bloodstream in a more maximal way orally. And most people are used to taking oral drugs. It's easy, simple. So optimizing oral uptake of these is I think, one of our Impact Naturals key activities.
So it sounds like we're talking a lot about bioavailability here, and there's different mechanisms to maximize that potential. And you hear about a lot of firms out there that are developing delivery systems with nanotechnologies, just make it smaller, right? Or when you're talking about the fatty side of it, maybe sort of accompanying this with sort of a surfactant, kind of delivery system. Can you speak a little bit more about those approaches? What seems to show the most promise? And is the whole nano approach, is that propaganda, or is there any legitimate science to it?
I think the nano approach, is I wouldn't call it the propaganda. So making molecules smaller makes a lot of sense. Do you need to go to the nano-sized particles? That's a separate question. And what is most importantly is that the particle size reduction actually happens in the stomach, not in the formulation, not in the bottle. So what's really important is to create a formulation that reduces the size of those molecular structures in the stomach. Nano approach is just a subcategory of a much broader approach, which is basically self-emulsification. And so there are multiple approaches that have been developed over the 50 years by the pharmaceutical industry that create those self-emulsifying formulations. So basically, when the preparation, the formula gets in the stomach, it gets affected a certain way by things in the stomach, and then it breaks down into smaller particles of a certain size. But not only the size matters, but the composition of those particles matters as well. And this is where the real science comes in, because you can make things smaller, but those smaller particles have to be then recognized by our human physiology in a certain way. And so the goal of creating those particles is to make them coded in a certain way, if you will, so that they get recognized by the stomach, by the walls of the stomach, in a proper way, and then channeled in our blood system through a different avenue, which is called lipid transport system, and that allows you to bypass the liver. And that is kind of like the main goal of increasing bioavailability, is how can we develop a formulation that makes the particles smaller, which is, nano could be doing that, but not only making them smaller, making them of the right composition that allows you then to use human physiology to deliver all of those particles throughout our human body. And our human body has that system. It's called lipid transport system. And that's what our body relies on transportation of triglycerides. And then those triglycerides then encapsulate multiple vitamins, multiple nutrients, and particles like cannabinoids.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, regardless of how it's delivered into your gut, when it gets to the wall of the intestine where it's absorbed, whatever form it's in is breaking it down into solubilized drug, fats, whatever. It's not like they're entering via some little particle. The particles need to be reduced down to the molecular level, which then go into the enterocytes, which are the cells that line the gut. And inside the enterocyte, they are reassembled into little chylomicrons, which are, again, particles, which then go into the lymph. If they're not reassembled and released into the blood, they will then pass through the liver, get chopped up, but eventually they will just attach to chylomicrons passively, and then ride those around. And that's how they get to the rest of the tissues in the body. So it's a very long process. The whole lipid transport, or even molecular transport, if you go through the blood. So whatever particles enter your gut, they have to be broken down into molecules before they can enter your body. They don't enter as a nanoparticle.
Yeah, and basically, our formulation approach is designed around facilitating our human physiology to do what it's designed to do, in order to quickly and effectively absorb fat-soluble components. And the formulation that we create is designed to make this process very quick. So instead of relying on 40 minutes, like what you have today with a lot of edibles or with a lot of oral gel caps, where it takes 40 minutes before they get actually processed, we make this process much faster, and it happens, within the first 5 to 15 minutes.
So that's an interesting point, and that kind of is a great segue to really talking about taking it back to a macro level, and the consumers trying to sort through the marketplace and whatnot. There's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of CBD products coming to market, so forth. You can get them online, go into any grocery store, what have you, and really trying to sort through what works. Regardless, the market's growing like gangbusters. It's $6 billion, depending on who's projecting. It's going to grow to 10 to 16 billion over the next 5 years. That being said, how do consumers figure it all out? Yeah, how are they able to basically figure out and differentiate? Because everybody's kind of seems to be making the same promises, and you have these same sort of macro sort of features and benefits and so forth. But when it comes to differentiation, consistency, reliability, formulations matter. And how is Natural Impact separating itself in the crowd? What's its messaging strategy going to be on that front?
Yeah, well, you're right. It's natural impact. Well, actually, we're impact naturals, but natural impact is a good way to put it. Yeah. So if you kind of follow advice that is given by advocates or clinicians within the area today, it's kind of like in a step fashion, laid out in a step fashion. So the step number one, people tell you, okay, you need to decide on the type of formulation that you're willing to use. Are you willing to use, the smokable, vapable, tincture, gel caps? So, well, we're providing a formulation that essentially has advantages of all of them. It works as fast as tincture and smokable. It provides actually probably more material, more CBD or CBG or whatever cannabinoids you have into your blood that lasts longer, and it is super convenient. It's just a pill. It's very easy to take. Second part that recommendation typically includes is, now that you picked your mode of administration, your form, then now you need to figure out the dose. So, and the mantra today is you need to start with the super low dose because you're not sure what product are you going to take. You're not sure, how well those products are formulated. We're not sure if the content is consistent, and we're not sure if, how you're going to respond, because there's a huge variability in how people respond to the products on the market. And what we're trying to reduce is that variability. We are, our formulation is designed to provide more consistent effect, as well as our formulation relies on cannabinoid material that we control for content in terms of all the key cannabinoids that we think are beneficial in our products. So we focus on right now on CBD, CBG, and CBN. With that said, we are using a broad spectrum approach. So there are other components in our products as well, but we control the exact content of those three cannabinoids today. And as the science evolves and the availability of those minor cannabinoids is wider, we're going to continue adding those cannabinoids. But every time you buy our product, you get exactly the same amount of CBD, exactly the same amount of CBG, exactly the same amount of CBN, and you're using a formulation that is designed to produce consistent effect that are less affected by, let's say, food intake or fat intake, and so that's kind of our differentiation factor.
You mentioned broad spectrum, and you also mentioned additional ingredients and what have you, and that kind of fits in line with one of the major trends in the market as well. Is just this move towards wellness and adding more functional ingredients, adaptogens into the product and so forth. When you're talking about specific amounts of the actual molecules and what have you, and then you open it up to broad spectrum, and then you're adding these sort of additional ingredients, how much predictability and what's the science and what's the process in terms of being able to really sort of stand behind that deliverable to the marketplace and being able to make those claims that, hey, this is consistent, this is reliable, we can scale this product. And I'm just curious in terms of what some of your development and R&D processes are that enable you to make those claims.
Well, we are working with the best, as we think, because we've done a lot of due diligence, so to speak, in the space, and we're very selective whom we work with in terms of the supply of the cannabinoids, and we are using the best technology that actually comes from food industry. So, food industry has been relying on this enrichment process for a long time. That is how you make products consistent. That is how you have consistent content from batch to batch. And you're using this blending approach, and you enrich to have exactly the same, let's say, flavor or taste in the food industry. But in our case, it's exactly the same content from batch to batch. That's kind of we're using an established approach that has been developed over the many years in the food industry.
Plus we look and make sure that the product is stable over time. So we're doing the testing that will ensure that the same amount of the contents is there a year later as there were when it was formulated. We also are doing some experiments in animals. Hopefully we would like to do some in people as well, that ensures that the amount that's being delivered is what we expect it to be, and that it is not variable. So we utilize the tools that we have used both in drug development and the food industry to assure that our products do what they say that they're going to do, that they're still doing it a year from now, and that they do it under virtually all circumstances.
Our first products that we've launched within the last week have shelf life, for example, of 2 years. Yeah, so there is a stability data behind those products that show that the degradation of cannabinoid content is stable over 2 years. Our research and development projects focus a lot on stability from day one. So how do we formulate, and what can we add to the formulation that will prevent degradation of phytocannabinoids? And we're using all natural components, so we don't have any kind of complicated chemistry. It all relies on natural components that by themselves actually often are vitamins and could provide additional benefits.
I guess two quick questions on that note. One, maybe Vassily, you can tackle the first one, and then I'll follow back around to Jim with respect to a couple of his comments on just more of a macro level. But when you're talking about degradation, phytocannabinoid degradation and what have you, Vassily, is that a current challenge with CBD products on the market today? And do you sense and anticipate that there is going to be a performance distinction between your product and products in the marketplace today? And then back to Jim. Jim, you touched on issues that relate back to something you said earlier on in the conversation when you were bringing up the government regulatory issues and what have you. What is the state of the market right now from a CBD perspective with the FDA, in terms of crossing state lines and a lot of these other issues, what you can basically put, what kind of claims that you can make on your packaging? What's the sort of state of the union on that front? So maybe Vassily, you can touch on the degradation issue, and then Jim, maybe you can talk a little bit more to the regulatory environment.
Yeah. So the cannabinoids are sensitive to light and heat. You probably can observe. Let's say if you buy products, even let's say at CVS, that contain CBD in terms of creams and lotions, that over time those products will become slightly reddish in color. This is a sign of degradation, and so those materials are sensitive to light and heat, and so most of the formulation development includes some kind of application of heat. So it's a well-known phenomena that people don't talk today about, but people that actually formulate, they're well aware of it. And it takes an investment as well as time to figure out how you can actually produce formulation that helps to slow down those degradation processes. And that's our focus. As I said before, we are putting a lot of effort into stability studies, and we're not moving forward if we are not happy with early stability data. And it takes a lot of time because the stability, even at early stages, we have to wait, probably 2 or 3 months before we actually see that degradation. And then we have to go back, we have to reformulate and then do the stability studies again, before we're happy. So it's an iterative process. It's doable, but it does take time and effort.
So the regulatory environment is very complex. Now, Congress passed a legislation, which has exempted marijuana, hemp, that has less than 0.03% THC in it from the laws. And so that's why we're able to people are able to sell CBD throughout the United States, across state lines, et cetera. Clearly, the THC is still illegal. It is still a Schedule I narcotic in the United States, but state laws have changed that. And so probably close to half the states in the United States have now made THC legal in one way or another within their state boundaries. However, the government has not made the decisions about how they're going to regulate CBD. Are they? They're regulating it like food. But once more data is out there about how CBD and other cannabinoids have clinical effects, I think it's going to become more and more regulated one way or another. I mean, there's a number of companies which have created actual pharmaceuticals that have been approved for use by the FDA. CBD is used to treat people with children with refractory seizures in very high doses. It can be used in combination with THC for nausea and chemotherapy patients. CBD has also been approved, maybe not in the US, but in some places in Europe, for spasticity associated with multiple sclerosis. So some of it's being regulated through the FDA, particularly if you have claims. Now, the whole issue of claims, I think that if you start making claims that CBD does this, CBD does that, you need to have data to back it up and probably go through the FDA these days. But perhaps at some point we'll be able to it'll be regulated in some way distinct from the FDA that might allow us to make some claims. But right now, we don't make too many claims other than, it will improve your health.
On a related note, in bringing Joe into the conversation, as I understand, part of the company's strategy to accelerate, broaden, deepen, and its market opportunity and its product suite. You're in discussions, and it's part of your strategic plan to acquire a worldwide exclusive license from Lexaria. And Joe, maybe you can talk to what that opportunity is and what the overall game plan is on that front.
Yeah, it's very critical. It goes back to Jim's earlier comment about MCTs and tinctures and where and Vassily's explanation of where the cannabinoids are directed. Lexaria developed early on. Actually, the technology was born out of one of the founders who was a doctor in oncology and stuff and dealing with vaginal the effects on the vaginal area from chemotherapy and developing topicals for it, developing a dehydrating process that included long chain fatty acid as opposed to medium chain fatty acids, and applied it to a number of different molecules from nicotine to pharmaceuticals right now, and very good consultation with Gilead for vaccine delivery and pharma delivery. It's a SED system, as Vassily explained. It's a self-emulsifying drug delivery system that also is applied to the cannabinoid molecule. And so what the process does is dissolve the CBD molecule into a long chain triglyceride, in this case, a high oleic organic sunflower oil, and then bonds it or dehydrates it and infuses it to a substrate. And that substrate can be anything from a tea leaf to a dextrose to a maltodextrin to an ashwagandha to any of the functional ingredients we're talking about. Once that's done, there's no hemp taste, no hemp smell, and the biodelivery is within 2 minutes now clinically studied and documented into the bloodstream because, as Vassily explained, it's how it behaves in the stomach. So we feel that our technology mimics the behaviors of chylomicron and goes straight into the lymphatic, into the bloodstream. That makes it a great commercialization opportunity because you're not disrupting. There's other powders out there. We don't just powderize CBD. There's other powders out there, et cetera, that are added as an extra ingredient. We actually bind the CBD to an ingredient. So there's no disruption, et cetera. The bioavailability in the onset has been documented from blood-brain barrier tissue to reduction in hypertension and all because of the efficacy, the consistency, the dosing precision, and the bioavailability that we can document that we do with this technology. Now, the hemp division of Lexaria is, as I have been building in this country, or in the United States anyway, is open to an opportunity to acquire. And that gives us the rights to a very unique and very effective technology for biodelivery and manufacture of functional goods and CPG products in the market. And I think that's the key right now. In 2019, there was a huge buzz with CBD, but most of the products came out of the THC world. Tinctures, vapes, some topicals, honey, gummies, but none very well because of the hemp taste. It's bitter. Lexaria's technology changes that because you don't have that. 2020, COVID shut everything down and weeded out the lifestyle cottage industry companies. 2021, we feel, is a reset. And what we're seeing is Impact Naturals is doing using the technology. It's going to be functional, appropriate, and effective consumer product goods that are going to win the day, that people would buy with or without the CBD. But with the added benefits of CBD, which we can accentuate with the technology, that's where we feel the market is growing. RTD, ready to drinks, have exploded. Topicals have. And now, as Dr. Jim explained, the Farm Bill, regulatory system is insane and very difficult to navigate. In California, for example, you can buy hemp products in Oakland all day long. Next door in Berkeley, you can't. So even states within themselves are confused. However, it's not stopping commercialization. It's not stopping the major brands from getting into the space. And they're doing that today with products that are effective and that work. And the technology that we have The technology we seek to acquire the worldwide rights to, as you spoke to, addresses all form factors of CBD with the same effectiveness, consistency of dosage, and bioavailability that we've been talking about with the Impact Naturals products.
So in May, Luxaria announced that I guess significant gains with CBD absorption relative to other controls, and I think they reported something in the neighborhood of a 2,700% more CBD into the bloodstream than MCT controls. What does that mean in plain English, and what are the implications for the product development path for the company?
Well, as Dr. Jim pointed out, the MCT puts it straight to the liver, which chops things up pretty well, 35 to 45% degradation. That makes dosage imprecise. In addition, because of the fat-loving natures of the CBD molecule, if you have a high-fat diet, you're going to have more absorption. If you're on a keto strain, you're going to be struggling with what you're getting in your stream. Our system is independent of that. We use the long-chain triglyceride, and that goes and is directed straight to the bloodstream. So the absorption, we don't degrade the cannabidiol, the molecule. It's more bioavailable, and because it's applicable to a number of ingredients and substrates or carriers, we can address many, many form factors, obviously with the exception of THC, of tinctures. But for product development, it's very flexible and very adaptable. Again, we don't necessarily add another ingredient. We bind to usually an existing ingredient. And so we can, with the clinical data, provide the consistency and the reliability and the documented evidence of greater bioavailability. And that's part of the problem, because not all CBD is the same. So in the buzz of 2019, everybody bought it based on anecdotal evidence and anecdotal word of mouth. Oh, try CBD, it's good for you. Nobody knew why, they just knew it was good for you. People started pumping CBD products out because it was very lucrative. But now with 2020, the reset for 2021 is your product better be at food grade standards, which all of ours are. Your developmental and manufacturing processes better be at SQF, CGMP, ISO, OTC, and all those levels, whether it's a topical or an ingestible. It's got to be consistent. And as far as the claims go, that's what the FDA is watching. They don't know how to regulate the cannabinoid industry, but they do know how to regulate claims. And that's where even Charlotte's Web and CBS got in trouble as well with making claims based on the CBD. But combining the benefits of CBD with a functional ingredient, we can write on the claims of that ingredient. So, for example, in Impact, we have a ginkgo biloba and American ginseng. Those have benefits. Other products have other additional need state addressing benefits that are accentuated by the addition of CBD. But with our bioavailability, that's not degraded. So you can be very adaptable in the manufacturing process. It fits into the CGMP, SQF, and food manufacturing environments very easily because it adapts itself by using a current ingredient already in the mix. And it gives the benefit to the body of that high bioavailability and absorption that we talked about.
Interesting. So Vassily, can you bring us all back to just the business, its products today? What is available to the market today, and what the near-term sort of roadmap looks like for the product development at the company?
So we have just launched 3 products, and it's basically 3 products that cover, so to speak, your whole day. We have something that is called Revive that you can use in the morning that has CBD, CBG, American ginseng, ginkgo biloba, and it has kind of like an uplifting effect. We have something, a product called Restore that is CBD and CBG without any kind of functional other ingredients, that is designed to be used together with everything else that you might be taking, other supplements or whatever else you're doing in terms of the health care, and you can use it anytime. And then we have a product that has CBD and CBN as well as melatonin, and that is designed to be used to help you go to bed. We are actively working on a 3 products for skincare, and we're focusing on it's less skincare, it's more of a pain and recovery. So we're focusing on addressing pain as well as facilitate recovery. For example, post exercise. We're using the Lixaria technology for that as well. We actually do have studies that show that our formulation penetrates the skin, human skin, much faster and deeper than most conventional formulations. And then we have another program that we're using, the largest pharmaceutical formulation development company, Catalan, and we're developing a liquid form that could be used in gel caps. We are actually, participating in a study that is being oversaw by an FDA. So with, FDA actually, the number one, we talked before about the regulatory concerns. So, FDA number one concern is do no harm. And the number one thing that they always focus on, does your product, does your ingredient have a potential to do harm to the general population? So the number one concern that FDA has today is effect on liver. And more specifically, what they're mostly concerned is there an interaction with other therapeutic prescription products that patient might be taking for life and death situations, like, let's say, cancer? And is there an interaction of cannabinoids, CBD and THC and the rest of them, with those products that could affect either the efficacy or toxicity of those products? And we have joined a study that is conducted by a company called ValidCare of selected few companies in CBD space that decided to do the right thing and give their products to get evaluated. And so we're going to have results probably, by the end of the year that will be used by the FDA in coming up with their recommendations. And we believe as a company in proactive approach to regulatory, decisions. Dr. Lowder and I have been part of a few projects, and we've seen what has happened in the pharmaceutical and diagnostic industry. And most companies tend to look at FDA as just kind of a policing regulatory function. But what the best practices in the pharmaceutical and diagnostic industry show is that the best companies that the best approach to actually partner with FDA and work with FDA and help the FDA to come up with the guidelines. And the step number one to that is actually self-discipline, self-regulation. It does come sometimes, at the sake of making decisions that slow down your immediate, very short-sighted, sales goals. But it positions you for a much longer and brighter future, because you actually then work with FDA to develop the guidelines that will be used by the rest of the industry, while the rest of the industry is just complaining that FDA is too complicated, FDA is bad, FDA is here to punish us. So that's kind of, as a company, we believe in this proactive, product development strategy, as well as approach to regulatory questions.
Great. So Sara, maybe bringing you in here and speaking about sales and go-to-market strategies. What is the plan here to help the business punch above its weight in a burgeoning marketplace? As I understand it, the primary sales strategy is direct to consumer. Maybe you can kind of walk us through a little bit of what some of the game plan is here, how you're helping the company position itself and stand out on in a increasingly crowded marketplace?
Absolutely. So CBD has two main groups of customers and kind of a third smaller market. The first primary market is women over 55. They are primarily interested in a pain product. They are usually taking multiple medications already. They may be doing some shopping for the family, so it doesn't mean even though they're the primary purchaser and decision maker, it doesn't mean they're not also shopping for the men in their lives, right? We all know how that dynamic works. And they're a little bit more value conscious, but but health is something they invest in, and they will read every scrap of content that you put out there. That's definitely something we're learning about. 50% are naive to CBD, 50% have tried it before. It's got unaided awareness of over 80%. So, and that's kind of true across the board. For the most part, you don't have to spend a lot of time telling people that what CBD that it exists. You don't really have to do awareness. What you do have to do is a lot of education, though, because something like a third of people, even people who've tried CBD, still think it can make you high, which is amazing. So that's that first kind of currently largest by economic market is that older female group. Our second target is millennials. That's 50-50 male-female split, about 20% actually LGBTQ. They are primarily interested in anxiety. They have less, kind of money to spend out of pocket, but they believe in investing in, supplements. They believe in investing in their health as, a primary, driver. And the third market, which we don't really target as much, is kind of what we call the glam user. The glam user is, you can think about them as kind of like the Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow, always on the latest health trend. They're great in terms of influencers because they're definitely out there. I say they're not our primary just because they tend to also drift away. They were excited about Aussie berries a year ago. They were excited about CBD 6 months ago. They'll be excited about it. Now they're on adaptogens. You know what I mean? Like they're a very fickle, flowy market. But if they find something that works, they will stick with it. And they do have punch above their weight in terms of word of mouth. So in terms of our positioning, if you look at where the CBD market really is, there's a lot of people out there who were trying to kind of occupy the most natural space, right? So if you think about we're the closest to nature, we have a lot of leaf related imagery, we're really telling a story about the terroir and they're almost going at it like an organic winemaker, kind of point of view. No problem with that at all, but it's not our angle at all. It's much more about, just like taking goodness into your body is kind of the feeling. And then you've got a couple brands out there that are specializing a little bit more in anxiety and kind of a millennial soft focus packaging. Feels is a big one we look at a lot. And then you've got one or two, Mary's is up there, Medterra's in there a little bit as well, that have tried to take a more kind of like, science-y, Kiehl's kind of approach. Neither one of them is, I would say, killing it on the marketing right now. That could be a lack of money or resource. That could be a bit of, squabbling over direction of the company. I'm not really sure. The way that I see our course being best charted, and some of this is coming from, I think, just the absolute authentic space of who we are and what we have to offer the market. And some of it is also about where I think the opportunity in the market is. We are bringing scientific rigor into the CBD space. We are about being, reproducible, reliable, tested, medically vetted, just absolutely like a reliable, performance-based product. We're less relying on the whole sort of like, CBD with sparkles and unicorns and butterflies around it. And we are much more into let us explain to you why this works. Let us explain to you like what's going on in your body. Let's talk about what trauma is, good and bad. And these are the ways that we're going to actually help and improve your health. If you wanted to think about a company that we were aspirational to, I would say the supplement company Thorne is a good one, THORNE. They are, a premium supplement provider that if you're a serious athlete, you probably know about, and they're not after every single person as their customer, but they are after the right people, so to speak. If I had to compare us to a CPG brand, I would say that my dream in 5 years is that we are the Dollar Shave Club of CBD. We are reliable, we are smart, we are sexy enough, but we're not here just to be cute. We're here to be functional, and we're here to, we're here to really make an impact. And we're the kind of product that you would say we're a wow product. If we can't do something 3 times better than what exists, we're not really that interested in doing it. We're not just here for kind of like, the celebrity nod, we're building a longer chain and a longer path.
And I would add, when you look at all of the successful companies right now in the CBD space, they tend to have a very long menu of products, and they tend to go after too many opportunities at once. And it feels like they're not finishing a single opportunity. They're spreading themselves a little too thin, going after too many things, and they're trying to sell to too many customers, too many products. As a result, they're staying at the surface, and they're not going deep, and they're not really developing the relationship with their customers, and they're just mostly relying on constantly having some kind of a new flavor of the day. We are really focusing on building relationship and having more of a subscription-focused business model, where if we're going to spend time and money on educating and bringing somebody as our customer, we will spend the effort to retain those customers with us. Yeah. Because in the end, it's not only about sales, but it's about profitability.
Yeah. One of the reasons I mentioned Dollar Shave Club is they were acquired, we acquired them at Unilever a while ago, but one of the reasons Unilever was so interested in the acquisition was Dollar Shave Club had never been in retail before. They were purely, and, podcast, word of mouth, a little bit of advertising, but a lot of it was just around, we want to, we're going to market differently. And we know that there's a pain point to buying, shaving products, and, especially for women who are overcharged and underserviced by the shaving industry, In terms of our market approach, so right now we, advertising and CBD is a very charged space. Social, Google and Facebook both have significant barriers to doing some direct marketing. We do have early exploration pieces that are live right now, that we're seeing some really early, kind of success with. We've built a huge unbranded group on Facebook that's up to about 150K people right now, with basically like a funnel plan around, building that into a brand awareness chain. We're going very slow because obviously we don't want to, Facebook will shut you down for nothing. And I know you might not believe it based on how much political shenanigans went on last year, but they are very conservative around CBD, probably because they're worried about being broken up. So social media is going to be powerful for us, but we're definitely not investing all of our eggs in the basket, because that is it's a challenge for all the brands. We are also working with a company on programmatic marketing. Basically, that's targeting around, and they have deep experience in CBD. We'll be kicking off with them this week. And we'll also be looking at, I don't want to call it, I'll call it influencer. Celebrity is definitely not the right word, but we're also looking at what I would refer to as like accessible influencer programs. We have one relationship, for example, with an Olympic para-athlete. She's interesting to us for a number of reasons. Very charismatic, very great story, coverage across Good Morning America and some other, kind of like national media. She is drug tested constantly. So the whole, THC free aspect is extremely important to her. And her health issues aside, she's also an elite athlete in her 40s, who is dealing with all the recovery, and issues like that. So those are kind of our main strategies in terms of out the door. And anything else you want to ask me on a more targeted way?
Well, it sounds like what you are investing in is credibility, and which is obviously key to building a brand and building the Impact Naturals business. So that makes a ton of sense, Sara. And Sara, Vassily, Joe, Jim, just want to thank you for your time this morning to talk about the business and more macro sort of dynamics of the marketplace, and look forward to watching your growth and success going forward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this special podcast interview between Impact Naturals Group and Dealbox. For more information on Impact Naturals Group, contact John Nance of Dealbox Inc. at john.nance@dealbox.io. Again, that's john.nance@dlbx.io. Thank you again for listening. Until next time. You've listened to another episode of Dealbox Daily. For more information on DealBox, we invite our listeners to visit us at dealbox.io. There you can subscribe to our newsletter and gain valuable information on our suite of products and services for investors and entrepreneurs. Once again, that's dealbox.io. That's DLBX.io. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you during the next episode. Until next time.